I have with me here a new phone from Doogee, and it is one of those rugged phones. This has got an IP68 water resistance rating to it, military grade drop protection, and this phone may interest quite a lot of people that if your work demands it, or it's a tool that you find really useful to have, it has a thermal imaging camera. This is something you don't normally see built into a phone. It's got that. It has a 50 megapixel main camera on the rear and a 24 megapixel night vision camera too. It's got infrared lights with this model that of course work in conjunction with the night vision camera and a thermal imaging camera. And it's called the V31, this model GT. Now it's powered by the Dimensity 1080. It's got 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage, and the screen is 6.58 inches. It's full HD plus in IPS, and I'll be covering this model in a little bit of depth here to let you know exactly what to expect out of Doogee's new rugged phone. And this is what is included. So we've got a limited warranty card, a screen protector accessories, and the SAR value specification sheet, user manual, a Type-C to Type-C cable, and our 66-watt charger, which can fully charge it in around about just under 2 hours, and it gets to 50% charge in just 30 minutes, which is great considering how large the battery is. The V31 GT, like their other outdoor rugged phones, is of course quite a bit chunky, but that's part of the reason behind getting this phone, is it can handle those drops. So it is drop resistant, IP68, so water's not going to be a problem on this. So on our right hand side here we have a fingerprint reader. Now this is a capacitive always on one. I'll just demonstrate that it is working really well. So just tap that and you see it unlocks, and I have not had any issues with it. Volume up and down right here. So this side is made out of metal. We've got plastic rubber around the outside, all part of that drop protection with it. It is heavy, so 390 grams, and it's thick, about 18 millimeters, or just under 17.9 millimeters. So down the bottom here, you'll find a Type-C port. This does support USB 2 speed, so it's not USB 3, and there's no video out from it. Now, as long as that gasket's in there, of course, you get the IP rating. If you happen to break this or lose it, then water might be able to get in and damage that port, although it should be protected by it. So it's got that little dust cap cover for it. Microphone down here. Up the top, there is nothing, so there is no 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. There is no IR transmit at all. Now we have dual loudspeakers with this particular model here, and we have like the action button, almost just like what Apple has now, but there's a button here that you can dedicate it. So for a single tap, it can be a certain application, double tap something out, and then press and hold. You can have another app for that. You can customize that through the settings. So we have a SIM tray that takes 2 nano SIMs or 1 nano SIM, and yes, a micro SD card, which is good. A lot of phones don't have that, of course. And you can see this metal on the side here that is screwed into place. So it's a very chunky design, but it does seem to work and very resistant, and that's probably great for tradesmen, people that might accidentally drop this phone. So the screen is 6.58 inches, it's full HD plus, and the same complaint as last time with the screen brightness that the other models, it's just, I don't feel it's bright enough outdoors. You can see now it's a little hard to make out, and you're measuring, well, I'm measuring just over about 250 nits maximum, so it really needs to be about 600 to be an outdoorsy kind of phone too. Doesn't really make too much sense with that. So 32 megapixel camera right here, teardrop style. Bezels are, yes, relatively big, and it's 120 hertz the screen with this. And on the back here, we do have our camera. So there's the night vision camera. That one is 24 megapixels, while the night mode camera. Then we have the infrared camera too, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and then a 50 megapixel, which is the IMX766. And it's a pretty good sensor, but as you'll see later on with the camera samples, the cameras really are the letdown, I feel, of the V31 GT. So as long as you're using the screen indoors mostly, it's not going to be an issue for your day-to-day tasks and things. So in the settings here, you can see we've got a few options. Adaptive brightness, and is all common there. You've got screen timeout that you can set to never because it's an IPS panel. It won't get burn-in, so it's not really going to be an issue. And there's some settings in here like the LED at the top that you can control and our refresh rate. Now, I love to see this, that you've got 90 Hertz with this phone. Now, a lot of the flagships offer just 60 dynamic or 120 Hertz. So good to see we have this option. This is a good balance between fluidity and battery saving. For the whole time I've been using it, I've forced it to 120 Hertz. Now, what is missing in the settings here for our display is, well, the scaling's all there, but what is not there is color. Okay, so if you wanted to adjust the white balance of the screen, tweak the colors a little bit, Doogee does not give us this option here at all, unfortunately. Now, the gestures, they are working fine, and it is an Android 13 phone here. There are firmware updates. I have had one already, and there's no bugs with the ROM. I haven't encountered any issues. Everything does seem to be fast and fluid here, and yes, we do have, as you can see there, all the widgets and everything in one with it. So no problems with the UI. It's fast, it's fluid, it's reliable, it's working well. I really have no complaints about that. Now, they do have a few things in there that if maybe you needed this, you've got them like the tool bag, seen this before. So compass, sound meter, a few other bits and pieces. But what is new to this model, because it's an infrared camera based one, is this here. So it's called Infiray, because it's an infrared camera. It's a little slow to load up the application. Even with this Dimensity 1080, we've got 12 gigabytes of RAM. It takes a little while, as you can see. And once that is set up, then you get your readout there, as you can see, a live one. So you can take photos, record video. And this, for me, is the key reason to get a phone like this. And it's going to be handy for someone like me when I review a lot of phones or mini PCs that start to overheat. Well, I can use this and have a look at the temperatures too. So once I put my hand there, you can see here. And I've just got now a couple of sample images, recordings from it. So this is my cat Vera. And you will be able to use this for all sorts of practical uses as well. Maybe you are doing installations for heating in homes and you want to see areas where there are weak points, maybe around windows. Well, because it's an infrared camera, you'll be able to see that. You'll be able to see the cooler spots where the heat is bleeding out from the room for insulation where maybe it's lacking. When you receive the phone, there really is not any bloatware that's on board. And remember, you can expand upon the storage too, so it's not much of an issue. You're not going to have storage limitations. UFS 2.2, 256 gigabytes worth of it, 12 gigs of RAM too on board with it. And note, we do have FM radio. It's hardware tuner, but you do need to plug in a Type-C to 3.5mm adapter. That isn't included in the box, unfortunately. So they've got the apps on there that I think most of them are useful. Nothing I would really classify as bloatware. So it only has a Widevine Level 1 security cert here for our streaming, okay? So DRM. This means that Netflix is just in standard definition, Amazon Prime Video, Disney Plus, all of that. I do hope that Doogee can apply for this. It would be very handy to have on a phone like this because we do have a full HD Plus screen. You could take advantage of that. There is camera API 2 support. It's just full, not quite full level 3. That's even better, but full, you can still use most Gcam ports, open camera, a few others if you wanted to try someone else's camera applications for the cameras on board with this. So we have here a score. This is Antutu version 2, but it's the light 3D one that I had to run because I couldn't get the standard one to work on it. It kept saying install. So the score here is very good. It's not too bad at all for the Dimensity 1080. And it doesn't really heat up that much. You can see it's gone up only 3 degrees. And I've noticed even gaming that it's not a warm chipset at all. The phone does not really throttle at all. It just doesn't have the power to really throttle. So the internal storage, this is UFS 2.2, 256 gigabytes as mentioned. And yeah, good speeds. You can see it gets just over 1,000 for sequential reads and almost 1,000 with writes. And very good random reads there too. It's not going to be slowing down the phone. What will slow it down is the chipset itself. But as I mentioned before, like the performance in general seems to be pretty good of the V31 GT. So I play some calls with this phone and I've really got no complaints. It sounds fine to me, to my ears. So we have the 2 loudspeakers, one here, one there at the top. They are loud. They've got a tiny hint of bass and haptics on the phone, just to mention that. Nothing amazing. It's a very weak little pulse, the haptics. And at least the volume's loud, so you should be able to hear those ringtones. Now, you can use 3.5mm headphones. You just need to get yourself one of those, of course, and adapter. So the sample I'll play you now is at 100% volume, just to give you an idea of what to expect from the V31 GT. So can it game? Of course it can. The Dimensity 1080 still performs well. This is Genshin Impact, which is well known for being a very demanding game. And it really does not have any problems here running the game. And this is on just the medium to low settings that I have right now, 60 frames per second. Occasionally you'll notice a few little frame dips, but it can handle it. Pretty much every single title, yes, every title in the Play Store will be playable on this chipset. What is helping out is that 12 gigabytes of RAM. That's certainly aiding the performance. Over to the cameras now with the Doogee V31T. So front-facing camera can shoot 1080p. I have enabled the electronic image stabilization. That is off by default. The quality, I did find that it does do this. You can see when I'm in the sun that it will overexpose a little bit. So I think the exposure needs a little bit of work. And in general, the cameras do need some optimization, as you'll see now from the samples that I'll be providing you. This is 4K video that it can shoot, and it does have the electronic image stabilization enabled. But I've noticed that with the electronic image stabilization on the frame rate, look at this, this is not 30 frames per second. So as I pan around, it is dropping frames. Not good at all. So not good video quality for 4K. It's bad. It's bad. I would not use it at all. This is now 1080p, which does look a lot smoother. But of course, we don't have the resolution. It's not as sharp and as detailed as 4K. But I would be shooting, if I had this phone, with just 1080p, because that 4K quality is poor. It's bad. Okay, so that was terrible video quality. And what about the photos? Well, sadly, they're not much better at all. As you can see from these examples I'm showing you, it just shows to me that Doogee has not optimized these cameras at all. It seems to just be using stock camera app here with Android, and they've done no optimization. So selfies overexposed. You can sometimes get an okay photo, like right now, out of the main 50 megapixel camera. So it's some good hardware. It's the IMX766, but there's just the lenses that they're using, I think, and just the optimization here. There's clipping, it's overexposed. Not good at all. The cameras are the weakness with our Doogee V31 GT. Recapping now with our V31 GT, the battery life is a definite strength. So 10,800 milliamp hours. It's a large battery. Most phones are half of that capacity nowadays, especially, well, flagship phones. This here will go for around 3 to 4 days. Typically, I'm seeing about 25% battery loss in a normal day's kind of use. If I use the cameras a lot, it might be about 30% I lose. So that's why I say it's around 3 to 4 days the battery life, which is good. Charging time, considering how large the battery is not really that bad thanks to the 66 watt charging. I mean, this is even faster than Apple and Samsung, the charging here that we get with this. Can get to 50% in just 30 minutes, so that is good. Now the screen, it's too dim for outdoor use, which is this is marketed as. I mean, it's a very solid, chunky, rugged phone, waterproof, drop resistant and all that, but if you're going to be using it a lot, maybe you're out hiking for the GPS, you want that battery life, if you use it in the sunshine, as I showed you, that it's hard to make out the screen. It really does need to be brighter, and this is an issue that I've reported with the other Doogee phones that I have reviewed and covered, is they're just simply not bright enough, I think, their phone screens they use. So the UI is fast, it's fluid, Android 13 is basically stock there. We've got FM radio, the GPS, as I mentioned before, well, it does work well. It takes a little while to get the first lock, and after that, it's working fine. We've got the built-in loudspeakers too, which is another good thing. And the biggest, well, letdown is the camera performance. And this, unfortunately, this is common with Doogee, as they don't really tend to optimize their cameras that well at all. The main camera can occasionally take a good photo. The 50 megapixel IMX766, that's a Sony sensor, is a good sensor, but it's just not optimized well at all. It'd often be overblown, so overexposed, oversaturated, looking a little disappointing. The night shots weren't that great, and even the night vision camera, which is infrared with black and white, you can fit a lot in there, but nowadays a night shot is typically better than what you get out of that. And another big thing, and another selling point, and why most people will probably be looking at this phone, is its thermal imaging camera. So having that, the infrared camera, and seeing the temperatures of things like hot spots in a car engine or a motorbike exhaust system or something like that, or some electronics that you're covering and you want to see where it's getting too hot or whatever reasons for your work, your trade, is great to have it built into a phone, so you don't have to go around and carry a separate device for that to get those clips. You can record that footage. Now, the resolution of the video I showed you from that quick sample there isn't amazing, but I think it's sufficient enough for what you'd need it for, just to see those patches of where maybe it's too cold, too hot, and those temperatures. So that's a thing that this has really got going for it, this phone here. So there we go. That is the full story really behind the Doogee V31 GT. Thank you so much for watching my review.